Shabbat Shalom Mishpacha, this is Rabbi Simon at another Sabbath, wonderful day of remembrance. So, continuing from where I left off last week, we were looking into numbers, and of course, people, this is new information that I've given to people that I haven't spoken about before. I mean, as you know, that there is numerology in the Bible, there is cosmology, and there is also other things in the Bible that are spoken about, but each item in the Bible has its own weight and value. Now, I don't personally think that the Western people understand the importance of names and their value, because they usually just take the date of births. They usually just add them up, and then they tell you the number is this, but that's not really useful. That's not going to help you in choosing a relationship, in choosing your marriage. It's not going to help you in determining is the person you're doing business with right? Is the person you're going to marry, have in your life, is that person suitable? That information is practically useless. It's of no use. It's not going to help you in any way. However, what I'm giving you is something totally different, which is, it is remarkable that I'm probably the only rabbi in the world who's bringing this information. Again, this is not information that's taught by pastors or rabbis. So, looking into this information, I was talking to some students and discussing their numbers, and listen, some of the students' numbers, their names, they add up to the number 5 or the number 7. And I had to instruct them how to get around that. And I even explained to certain of my students that because of their parents giving them these names, that they did not know the value of that name, a numerical value. And we're not talking about the numerical system in the English method, because that'll give you the wrong interpretation entirely. So I was explaining to them that how, my students perhaps failed marriage or failed relationships or difficulties that they had experienced in their life was entirely not because of, she was under a bad omen or God didn't like her. No, it was because of the name that she was given. Isn't that surprising? I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? It's absolutely shocking that a name that you've been given can have such an impact on your life, on your marital life, on your education life, on your other aspects of your life. So it's very important. I remember years ago, I was very acutely aware of my name's meaning. And I was kind of amusingly, I was kind of amused by it, by my surname, because my surname had a very good meaning. So I was like thinking that, my mom and my dad, they gave me a good name. So Altaf has a very good meaning, and it has a very good numerology number as well. So I was very happy with that, and I was like, wow, the parents, I don't know even if they knew. Maybe they even didn't know, my parents. And they just gave me the name because somebody said, use this name. And you know how it is when a child is born. You got several relatives around you, and they suggest the names. Uncle says, put my name, and auntie says, use my name. And everybody wants to be the number one, to suggest their name so they can give that baby their name. So what happened, whoever suggested my name, it turns out to be a great name. Had it not been a great name and I found out, I would have changed it. So, having said that, the problem that we have today, and this is something I want to highlight with my students, is that when you have children and when you're gonna, beget children, you're gonna, you get married and have children and so on and so forth, make sure you consult with me before you give a name to a child. The ideal name that you should give a child, ideal value should be 3. 3, you can start with 1, 2, 3, 4. These are great values to have. out of these, 3 is a great value, because 3 is associated with God. It's a number of completion. Contrary to what we've been led to believe in the past, 7 is not the number of completion. 7 is actually a very dangerous number. It's a very destructive number. And when people say to me, well, how do you know it's destructive? Well, I say, look at the temple. Look at the 2 temples that we had. What happened to those 2 temples? Both burned down, destroyed. Number 7 is associated with those temples. So I give them the example of the Atlantic, the sinking of the Atlantic. And then there are several other examples. Then I look at people and their numbers. So when I look at people, for instance, the number 8. If your name has a number 8 value, it shows that you're going to go through difficulties in life, many challenges in your life with the number 8. It's heavy. It's very heavy. Always very heavy. So it's not as bad as the number 7 and number 5, but 8 itself is a heavy number. Anybody, man or woman, who has that numeral against their name, the value of 8, usually has a tough life, tough choices to make, tough decisions, difficult life. So do you really want to have the number 8 against your name? Of course not. Just today I was speaking to a relation of mine, a relative of mine, and I was calculating their name and the numeral, and it happens to be that I said, does your house have a number? And they said, no, the house doesn't have a number. It's just perhaps just a street name maybe, and so, or street number, and so the house doesn't have a name. So that's fine. I asked them. I said, well, what's your name? Your husband's name and son, daughter's name and all that. And all 3, the wife, husband, daughter, all 3 have the value 8. And I said to the person, I said, listen, that's a very hard number to have. Anybody who has that number goes through a lot of difficulties, and guess what? That family is going through have gone through a lot of difficulties, and are still going through a lot of difficulties. And I was explaining to them that why having the number 8 is not a good idea. And the person asked me, there's somebody born in the family, and they asked me what name should we give her as a little girl. And I said, is it Christian or is it Muslim? She said, it's a Christian girl. I said, okay, if it's a Christian girl. And she suggested a couple of names, and both of the names she suggested, I said, no chance for both of them, because they both have the numerical value 5. I said, stay away from the number 5. Not a good value to have. So I gave her a name. I said, you can call her Irene, which has a good numerical value, or I said, my suggestion is call her Chloe. Chloe is great number. I said, got a great value. And number 3, I said number 3 is the best number to have. It's the number for God. So, and I left it at that. It just shows you. I said, don't suggest names for them that are going to destroy that person's life when they grow up. So this is how important and imperative it is. Now, coming back to Jesus, Master Jesus, Yeshua, we see that in the Bible, that when often he taught, there's certain things that he mentioned, certain things that we need to be aware of. And if we go into the Matthew chapter 13, and if we look at the parable, let's see, Matthew chapter 13 verse 10, and the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? He answered and said to them, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given. For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. Now, a lot of people had an objection with this verse. They said, well, how can God allow that somebody who already has stuff, they have abundance already, why would God want to give them more abundance? And somebody who has less, why does God take away even the less that they have? Well, the reason is very simple. is that this is where the term lack comes in. Somebody who lives in lack, and they're always thinking about how lacking they are, that's why they're always struggling financially, and that their struggle never ends, because it's a loop. Our brains, the way they are wired, there is something called the field. You may have heard of this term, the field. The field is a realm of possibilities. It's a quantum field. Now, the field technically is the connection for us straight to God. So that field is our connection to God. So how does God help us or doesn't help us is how we think. Now, let me give you a little secret. Let me give you a little secret of abundance. Let's say, I will tell you a little story as well in a minute, but let's say that you had a beggar come to you, somebody on the street, asking for $1. So, out of the goodness of your heart, would you give them $1? Or would you say, no, I don't want to give them $1. Why should I give them my money? And you walk away. Now, let's take both scenarios. In one scenario, you give them the $1. In the second scenario, you don't give them the $1. So, what does the one scenario teach you, and what does the second scenario teach you? Well, the first scenario where you give them the $1, it teaches you that you're abundant. You may be saying to yourself, I'm rich, I'm abundant. I can afford to give $1, no problem. In the second scenario, the message, the hidden message, because these are both hidden messages. So in the first scenario, your hidden message to your system, to your body, to yourself, to your consciousness is that you are abundant. You can afford to give $1. In the second scenario, the message you're sending is that you're lacking. You're not abundant. Obviously, the opposite of abundance is no abundance. So, how does the conscious field, how does this field react to that? Well, the way the field reacts, when you don't give the money, it starts to take away the money that you have. Because you signaled to the field that you are not abundant. That's why you didn't give the $1. But if you had given the $1, then you're abundant. Again, the answer stares in your face. So, let me give you a little example of this. I won't name names, but there was a certain person, and a certain person. Or shall I tell you the story, or shall I hold it? I think I'll hold it for this time. Maybe I'll reveal this story another time. It's a very, very interesting story, a true story. But I'll reveal its full intent down the road. I won't reveal it right now because I'll give you too much. So, what happens now is, I'm coming back to Yeshua, Master Jesus' words: for whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. Now, the other day, back in the East, when we are in the East, we have beggars coming to us, people coming to us and asking for money or food. And mostly they don't ask for food, they ask for money. Because all that is their profession. They simply want to just collect money. And most of these beggars are drug addicts. Because you could tell, because some of these people are young and they're drug addicts by their looks. But others are like women and girls and maybe young children. They're not drug addicts. They're just, out of habit because that's what they do, right? So I was standing at a store, and what's called a tandoor. I guess the Indian people would understand my terminology. Tandoor. The tandoor is a place where you go to buy your bread. They make it fresh for you, and it's reasonable cost. It's not expensive. So I was asking for some bread, and I wanted to take it home with me. And so a beggar stands next to me, a woman, in dilapidated clothing, and she says to me, "Can I also have food to eat? The bread." She said, "Can I also have the bread?" I said, "Sure." I said to the man, "Give her 2 pieces of bread as well." And, I said, give her 2, and, I was taking some for myself, and I said, add hers as well, and here's the money. And so I squared away immediately, straight away I gave her the bread, and I thanked the man and walked away. So, and the woman waited to collect her bread, and I guess she got her bread after I left. So my point is this, that was an act on my behalf to show what? I'm abundant. I have abundance, and I'm more than happy to feed her. I'm more than happy to feed her. Why? Because she asked for food. She didn't ask me to give her $100, or please, give me money to pay my rent or whatever, that kind of thing, right? So now let me give you another example. There are some dogs in our street, in our state, and our state is like it's a reasonable estate, prestigious estate. Rich people live here. I don't think there's anybody poor living here. Maybe there's a couple of families that we maybe don't call them rich, but they're not poor either by any standard, because their home is at least worth $50,000-$60,000. So, and they have to build it cash over here. It's not mortgaged. So therefore, anyhow, saying that, there are some dogs in the area. There are some dogs, and my wife told me that there was one dog, and she calls her Puffy, and her other baby dog. It's not quite a baby yet; it's grown up now, and she calls him Tuffy. And I looked at that dog. I said, "You think she's a female?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "No, she's not a female. She's a male." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "Okay, look at the underside of the dog. That's a male dog." And I said, Tuffy is a girl's name. So she said, "Okay, I'll have to change the name." I said, "That's fine." So those dogs come, right, every night at our door. And when I first came, and those dogs came, and I said, "Okay, what do you do?" She said, "I give them milk." I said, "Okay, no problem, give them milk." So she gave them milk. And then I think one day, I was having some chicken, and, I ate some of it, and I left the other part, and it was grilled chicken. And I just, the dogs came around midnight, and I just took my chicken. I had some rice, and I put them into the dog's bowl. I went outside and I put my chicken, my good bit of chicken, and there was like 3 or 4 pieces of it, which I didn't eat, because I guess I wasn't that hungry. So I fed to the dogs, both of them, the mother and the son. And they were very happy. They ate it. And you know what? Nobody would do that in our estate. In our estate, nobody will give chicken to them, because they will probably feed them breadcrumbs or something, that they want to throw away. But look what I fed them. I fed them my own meal. That's how I think, And I was saying to my wife that what I eat, that's what they will eat. Because, why should I feed them breadcrumbs? When God has given me the ability and the blessing to eat, I should bless them as well. They are God's creation. And God has sent them to our door. And so it's only right to feed them what I eat. So I do that, And similarly, my wife, what she does, she buys milk. We get milk over here in cartons, like in America, it's bottles. But here it's in cartons, and they're not as big. They're not as a gallon carton like in America, but they are smaller, like maybe a liter. So you get a liter carton, and then she uses that to feed the dogs. And I said, that's fine. I said, you can add some bread in there if you want to, can add some weight to it. But what happens from our house, right? Those dogs get fed every night. Every night they come and they get fed, whether it's food, whether it's milk. And we make the conscious effort to go and get the milk in the carton, make sure we have milk in the home. Out of that same carton, my wife would make me a hot chocolate. Now imagine that. Out of the same carton, she will make me the hot chocolate, and out of the same carton, those dogs are fed. Now you see the difference? You see how I treat animals? I don't treat them any less. So to me, right, they are also God's creatures. Now, coming back to abundance. Let's come back to abundance. Why are people poor? People are poor because they lack giving. the biggest thing that God taught us in the Bible was how to tithe. And even Jacob, and people today argue, oh, temple, no temple, temple, no temple, temple, no temple. You're idiots if you're going to argue temple, because, I don't argue with idiots. Jacob, our forefather, he didn't have a temple, and yet he was willing to give 10th of his resources away as tithes to God. Go back and read it in the book of Genesis. So if Jacob was willing to give it, and Abraham gave it when there was no temple, or Abraham, I should say, received it when there was no temple, so where does that leave people who today make excuses? You know what it teaches? What it teaches us? It teaches us that the people who don't give, they don't get either. They are the ones who remain in lack. So God removes from them what they don't want to give. That's called taking away what they already have. And then they wonder what happened, why they're still running in problems. And so the story I was going to tell you earlier, I didn't elaborate on that story because, I'm not ready to share that story, but that's a very vital, important story. There are certain people in this world who are always whining. Certain people, I'm not talking about my students, I'm talking about outside people. They are whining about their bills. They are whining about their whatever, and they don't have money, or their lack. They might say in the form of, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have this and I don't have that. And they're whining and whining and whining. And guess what happens? They get another bill. Then they get another bill. Then they get two bills. But they keep saying they can't afford to pay. Yet they have to pay. If you want the electric, you have to pay the electric bill. Otherwise they'll come and take away your meter over here. So my point is this. These whiners, and I'm not talking about Pakistan, I'm talking about America, US. There are people who whine in the US. And those whiners in the US, guess what happens to them? They're always in lack. They're always in need. And they're always broke. What happens is we run a loop. It's called a quantum loop in our brain. And what happens is that when we repeat a mantra, for instance, if somebody says that they are broke, it runs that loop. It creates what's called neuroplasticity in your brain. And when you keep saying that word like an affirmation, it writes it in your head. And now you really got problems. Because if it's written, if that neuroplasticity is written in your brain, you're now hardwired to be broke. Because that's what you kept saying. That's what you're going to be for the, not rest of your life, but until you change that programming. So now the question is, how do I change that programming? Very easy. Very, very easy. Instead of me complaining and whining about giving tithes and sadaqah, I give it. I give the tithes and sadaqah. I pay the 10% and I say, hey, I'm a rich man. Even though you might not be rich, but you just tell yourself you're a rich man. When you say that to yourself, your brain is wired with that information. And when you say it enough times, your brain gets wired, and that's what you will become eventually. So also the thing about living alone. I for many years lived alone. If you remember, when I was translating the Bible, I lived alone in the UK. Many, many years I lived alone. Maybe a goodness, it was good 8 years, maybe 9-10 years I lived alone whilst I was translating the Bible. And it was just me and me, in my home. So, but what happens is, what I learned, when you live alone, your field, your frequency becomes pure. Because you're alone, you don't have other people around you to disturb you or distract you, and they're not moody and they're not whining at you. Like if you're with a wife or with children, they might be creating problems for you or whining against you or saying bad things to you or whatever as families do. And what happens, that disrupts your field, your frequency. It disrupts it. So therefore, when I was alone, I had nobody to complain to. I had nobody to whine against. I was self-sufficient. I praised God. I did my prayers every day, and I thanked God, and I lived, and I was very happy. And that really helped me in my time, and it will help you if you're alone as well, because it will make you very powerful, and your field will be pure if you're alone. Because you can, your brain capacity expands. This is why I see why Yeshua, why Jesus went to the mountain, why he went to the caves, why he meditated, why he was staying away, was because when you are alone, and it's not that you have to meditate, you don't have to meditate, but you can if you want to, it'll help you. If you meditate, and I would encourage you to search for Tony Robbins' little workout. You can find that free on YouTube, and you can use that. It's like a 16-minute, 20-minute session. You can use that, and that'll help you to do a little good exercises he runs you through. So, and basically it goes through the pranayama, the first one, and the second one it goes through some other exercises which are all kind of linked together. They're very helpful if you want them. So, my point is this, that being alone is not a curse. It can be a blessing. And if you look, most of the prophets were alone. Jesus was alone. Moses was alone in the wilderness. Elijah was alone. A lot of these prophets and holy men were alone. So it's not a curse, it's a blessing. So what should we do in order to benefit ourselves? Well, this is what I suggest to you to benefit your life. What you do is you get a piece of paper and you write down your 7, 8 intentions or affirmations. Like maybe, you want to be in business. Maybe you want to have a, $10 million business, $50 million business. Or maybe you want a top-end job. You want to be earning $200,000 a year if you want to be working for somebody. Or maybe you have another aspiration. Whatever aspiration you have, you write it down as if it is done, and you write down those 5, 6 aspirations of yours. Let's call them affirmations, the aspirations. And then what you do in the morning when you get up, first thing, before you put your feet on the ground of the bed, you keep that beside your bed, that little sheet of paper, so you remember it. Because, you're likely to forget. So you wake up in the morning, and the first thing you do, you open your sheet of paper and you read them. You put your hand on the heart, you sit up, you breathe in, you breathe out 2, 3 times, prepare yourself, and then you read those affirmations first thing in the morning. So to give you an example, let me find an example. For instance, you could say something like, every month I effortlessly make, then set a figure how much you make, and you can say my wealth continues to grow exponentially. If you want to be a multimillionaire, you can say I am a multimillionaire, whatever business you're in. You can, if you want to have great relationships, you can say I enjoy deep and fulfilling relationships. I have great relationships built on trust, love, and understanding. If you like to travel the world, you can say I take vacations whenever I desire, exploring the world and indulging in the best life has to offer. And if you like to have friends in high circles, you can say I have friends in high circles, powerful and influential people. And then, you can say things like I'm blessed with abundance. My life changes from today. I am blessed with abundance. My wealth is a tool for positive impact, bringing hope, support, and change to others. So like that, you can say, number of affirmations. Maybe I'm not saying have a big list. I'm saying have a short list, maybe 5, 6 dominant affirmations that are going to affect your life. And first thing you get up in the morning, you say those. And you close your eyes, and for the first 5 minutes, you imagine having that life. Like if you are a multimillionaire, a businessman, you see your business running, and you see that you're opening your banking app, and you're looking that you have money coming in from your business, whatever the amounts you like to see. Maybe you like to see, $5 million amount, maybe a $10 million, maybe a $15 million, or whatever amount that you wish to see, you see that the balance shows you that. And you know, you're hearing conversations like maybe your wife, maybe your brother, maybe your sister, friend even, you know, they're saying to you, hey, so, you know, they take your name and they say to you, hey, you made it. You're a great businessman. Or if it's a job, then they tell you, hey, you got your dream job. And you just merely confirm and say, yes, I did. I'm very happy that I'm making X, Y, Z. So like that, you spend about maybe a total sum of between 5 to 6 minutes. That's all it's going to take you in the morning. And you do that bit, you know, you put your hand on the heart, you do that bit, because remember, your heart has a brain in it, and that will become active. And when you do this every morning, you are programming yourself to be that person, and you will be that person. But you have to do it diligently every day. It's an exercise that you must do. So once you do that, then you go to your bathroom, you do your bathroom necessary things, you come back, you know, whether you pray in the morning first thing or whether you have your breakfast, whichever way you do it, you do that. Then, if you're working, then you repeat that at lunchtime. And if you're not working, if you're looking for a job or a business, then you can repeat that same card that you have with your affirmations, piece of paper. You again do the same thing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then you do it again the third time in the evening. Now you can do it before bed, just before you go to bed. And then you go to bed with that piece of paper beside you. Now what's happening? Now what's happening is you're programming yourself to be that person. And step by step, you will become that person one day. Rest assured, I tell you, with a certainty you'll be that person. If you want a $200,000 job, you will have a $200,000 job. But believe it, you have it already now. Believe that you have it now. And you want to take the identity of somebody who is already rich, somebody you admire, and that will help you get there faster. You pretend to be that person. It's like Spider-Man, you know. If you pretend to be Spider-Man, what would you be doing? You'd probably be jumping between buildings, right? You will have this, you know, spider web going all over the place, and you're jumping between buildings like in the Spider-Man movie. So again, it depends what you want in your life, what you want to achieve. Just be that person. Tell yourself you're that person, and you get there. So Jesus goes on in that same, you know, parable where he tells them that hearing you will hear and shall not understand, seeing you will see and not perceive. And he says that for the hearts of this people have grown dull, their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears. Lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears. Lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desire to see what you see, and you did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it. Then, you know, we have in book of Matthew the parable of the sower. We'll pass that one. And we'll look at the mustard seed, verse 31. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds, but when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. So what is that? So that is exactly what I'm teaching you. In the morning, when you get that piece of paper and with your 5-6 affirmations, you speak it. That is the mustard seed. You just planted the mustard seed. Might be today or tomorrow. You planted it. Now you start to water it every morning. Like in the afternoon you water it. In the evening you water it. Then in the morning you do it again, you water it. In the afternoon, tomorrow you do it, you water it. So when you plant a seed, when we human beings, when we plant a seed in the garden, like let's say we're trying to grow tomatoes. we put the seed, tomato seed, in the soil in our little pots, but we don't go keep looking at the pot every day saying, where is the tomato? Where is the tomato? Because a seed has a time for it to come up. And when the seed comes up as a little flower, a little plant, we don't keep going and checking every day, well, where's the tomatoes? Where's the tomatoes? Where's the tomatoes? We don't do that. Same way, you're supposed to, your manifestation, your desire, your life, you're supposed to water it. You're supposed to believe it, and you will get it. Now, many times you ask the question, well, is God upset with me because, it's taking time? No, God is not upset with you. That is taking time. You put it into effect, and it will happen according to your belief and according to the season. In other words, it has its own timing. There is no fixed time. I can't tell you, if you're asking for $500 million, it's going to take 5 years, and if you're asking for $1 million, it's going to take, 1 year. No, it's not like that. Your $500 million can turn up in 3 months. It all depends on you and your belief and how you act it. If you, believed for a second, let's just take it for a second. And let's take an Indian figure. Let's say for a second that you believed that you were Ambani, Mukesh Ambani, one of the richest Indian billionaires. Then would you have to wait 3 months to get your 500 million, or would you already have it? Well, of course, with people like Mukesh Ambani, he already has 500 million. It's probably loose change for him, right? So if you take on the identity of Mukesh Ambani, how would you behave? How would you dress? Would you wear a suit? Would you speak, like he speaks, or would you speak better? How would you act? So you need to do that. You need to be like an actor. You need to act as an actor. And when you act as an actor, that's when the field collapses. What's the field? The quantum field. The quantum field, the time will collapse. Because remember, in the universe, there's no time. Time is only created by us for our need. We humans created it. But that doesn't have time. So in there, all the possibilities are present at the present moment. So when you start believing that you have a certain amount of sum in your bank, like, maybe I'm exaggerating 500 million. Let's just say let's just call it 50 million. That you want to have $50 million in your bank, and when you start believing it, and when you start visualizing and seeing that money there on your banking app, then you collapse time. How do you collapse time? The way you collapse time, because remember there's no time, the way you collapse time is believing that you have the money now. How would you behave? You see yourself on the telephone in your imagination that you're doing business deals. You're buying properties worth, $2 million because you have 50 million. What's 2 million to you? No problem, right? So you see yourself doing deals buying $2 million properties, or you see people, family members congratulating you for that, expensive apartment you bought in Florida or wherever for, $1 million. So that's how you need to start behaving. That's what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying that kingdom of heaven, where everything comes out of, which is our subconscious, kingdom of heaven is within there. Kingdom of heaven is access to God. So the mustard seed is your desire. When you plant it, you water it every day, and one day it's going to become a tree. And how quickly it will become a tree? It depends on your belief system. For some people, that might be 2 weeks. For some people, it might be 10 weeks. For some other people, it might be 2 years. Everybody is different. All five fingers of the hand are not the same. They're different sizes. So we cannot apply one yardstick for everybody. Everybody has a different different timing. Somebody might be able to manifest their desire very quickly, whilst others may take a little while. So Again, it's not because God is good to one and bad to the other. No, it's in your belief system. It's in the way you act. It's in the way you believe. So start to believe. Start to believe that things are yours. Start to believe it, and then you can receive it. You got to put yourself at the end of the state. In other words, if you believe that you have $50 million, you got to be at the end of the state, not in the middle, not thinking, oh, I'm going to put a check in the bank. No, you got to believe that the money is already there. And you got to believe that you are enacting a deal on your phone to purchase an apartment worth $1 million, and that you just purchased it. And you're happily receiving congratulations from somebody on there. And maybe living in the US, you go to buy a new car, and whatever that new car is, you bought that new car, cash. You don't see yourself in the garage. Because remember, we want to look at the end, not in the beginning where you go to buy the car. Buying the car is the beginning. No, you want to see where's the end. The car is parked in your home, and you're in the car, and you're getting somebody, a friend is calling you and congratulating on your new car, and you're saying, yeah, it's great. This is a great car. I love it. Everything's running smoothly for me with this car. And so, what do? You enact your five senses. You smell the new leather in the car. You touch the steering. You hear the sound of the engine. Those are the things that you need to bring into your environment, into your senses, to know that you have the car. Neville said that when he was in the army and he wanted to discharge, that never happened because they don't discharge people in the time of, or near the time of war. So they wanted to keep Neville in the army, but Neville wanted to go home, and his apartment was in New York. So Neville, after putting his application, it was rejected first time. And then what he did, every night he would pretend that he's sleeping in his apartment in New York. And in his imagination, he would see that he is overlooking the square from his apartment. He kept doing that for a whole week. Then a week later, his captain or whoever was in charge, he calls him back and he says, Neville, do you still want to go? And Neville says, yes, sir. And so he says, okay, refile the application. So Neville refiles it, and then he gets the orders to leave, discharge. So Neville did the impossible with his mind, believing it. And he believed that he was sleeping in his apartment, yet while he was still in the barracks. So this is what you need to remember. You need to have the faith to sleep in your apartment, or sit in your new car, or be at your business desk. If you believe you have a $5 million business, you want to be sitting on your desk, in your office, ordering people around. That's what you need to be seeing in your visualization. So if you do, and remember what I told you is acting. It's all acting. If you do the right acting, you will make the right connections. Time will collapse, and you will get what you desire. And I think I've given you this example many times before. I wanted a black BMW, particularly black in the UK. And I, wrote it up on my little piece of paper, and I put it in the future tense because I wasn't really, at that time I wasn't an expert in manifesting, but I was manifesting nevertheless. And I put down, I will have a black BMW. And that still worked for me. It took a little while, it took 2-3 years, but I got the black BMW. So my point is that it's possible. Everything you want is possible. But don't be a stingy person, and stingy in the sense that, you don't want to tithe. You just come and listen to the lectures and you walk away, but you don't want to tithe. But you have 10 reasons, you have 10 excuses why you can't tithe. How about you make 10 reasons why you can tithe? If you make 10 reasons why you can tithe, what do you think your brain will do? Your brain will rewire itself. It'll produce the money. You are already abundant. Only that you don't acknowledge it. You need to acknowledge it, that you are abundant already. When you start producing the money, abundance will follow because you decided to tithe. Do you know the richest family in America? The richest family in America. Do you know how they started their coming up? The Rockefellers, they were big tithers. They believed in tithing. And you look at the Rockefellers now, they've still got a lot of properties, a lot of wealth in America, all over the place. Because the Rockefeller families, or the history I read about them, it said that they were hardcore believers of tithing to God. And they did it due diligently. And look how God rewarded them. Money came back to them. Because when you circulate the money, it'll come back to you. And when you don't circulate nothing, then nothing will come back to you. If you circulate zero, zero will come back to you. But if you circulate something, then it will come back to you. So think about what you're doing. Think about your life. Instead of complaining and whining, oh, I don't have the money to tithe. Oh, I don't have money to pay the bill. Don't do that to yourself. You're only making your life worse. Look at your life, how you're treating your life. Look at how you're treating yourself. Treat yourself with respect. Give yourself dignity. And tell yourself that you're abundant. Don't stop the broken record and the old story of you are broke. There is a person that I know who does that. And they keep telling me that they don't have, that they are broke. They don't quite say they are broke, but they'll say things like, I don't have the money. I don't have the money to do this. I don't have the money to do that. I didn't say nothing to them. Why? Because I'm talking to the wall. When you tell somebody once, you don't want to keep telling them. Because they are bringing bad luck, bad energy to themselves by their speech. Your speech is very powerful. When your speech contains negative words, that's what you're manifesting. It will come to you in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it'll come to you. Whatever we speak, it comes to us in 3. Today, right, say to yourself, I'm going to see, let me give you an example. You say to yourself, I'm going to see a red car. Or let's just say BMW. You're going to say to yourself, I'm going to see a BMW on the road. I guarantee you that within the next 3 days, when you tell yourself that you're going to see a BMW, within 3 days you're going to see a BMW. Why? Because you told yourself that you're going to see a BMW. Then why don't you tell yourself good things? Then if you tell yourself that you're broke, what you're going to see? You're going to see broke as broke can be. Because that's what you told yourself. But had you told yourself that you're abundant, you wouldn't see broke and you wouldn't be complaining and whining. So stop the complaining and stop the whining. Start living the life that God has meant for you. God created you with all the tools and with abundance in mind. God did not create you poor. God did not say that you have to be poor to be Christ-like. That's the church's teachings, by the way, where the pastors get rich and you remain poor. Churches do that. They tell you to pick up the cross and be like Christ. Well, Christ wasn't exactly poor, if you ask me. He came from a rich family. Now, you have two choices. Either you can live and die poor, or a rich family can come out of you. Because maybe you didn't come out of a rich family, but a rich family can come out of you. Think about that for a second. Would you like a rich family to come out of you? Why don't you become the first millionaire in your family, so that a rich family comes out of you and leave a legacy? That's what I want to leave you with. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Sabbath, and shalom, shalom to you.